Here's a statistic that stopped me in my tracks. Nearly half of people approaching retirement in both Canada and the US say they're worried they won't have enough for retirement. Not mildly concerned, not keeping an eye on it, downright worried. And if you're over 40 or 50, that number probably doesn't feel abstract. It feels very personal. Because at this stage of life, retirement stops being a theory and it starts becoming a timeline. So I decided to do something a little different today. I gave myself 24 hours, no distractions, no doom scrolling, no financial hype, to truly understand how retirement savings actually works in both Canada and the US. And what I learned really surprised me, not because it was complicated, but because of how much unnecessary stress people are carrying around things that actually don't matter as much as we think they do. So, today I'm walking you through what actually matters, what you can stop obsessing over, and why retirement planning feels so hard even when you're doing everything right. If retirement planning has ever made you feel overwhelmed, behind, or quietly anxious, this video is for you. And I want to say this right up front. This is not a lecture and it's not financial advice. And this is definitely not a you should start early guilt trip. This is one human sitting down with you saying, let's slow this down and make sense of it. Because whether you're in Canada or the US, the systems may have different names, but the emotional experience is very much the same. Too many options, there's too much jargon, and not nearly enough clarity. So I'm going to walk you through this. Why retirement planning feels so hard, how the main accounts actually compare, the biggest aha moment from my 24-hour deep dive, and what actually deserves your attention going forward. And by the end of this, you won't know everything, but you will feel grounded again. So why retirement feels so hard? Let's talk about the real problem first, because the problem is not that you're bad with money, and it's not that you missed your chance. The problem is this. Most people were never taught how retirement systems work, and then were expected to just figure it out later. Think about it. We spent years learning how to work, how to earn, how to show up, but almost no one sits down and explains how income changes later in life, how savings actually turns into monthly cash flow, or what happens when paychecks stop. Instead, we get little fragments. Someone mentioned an RRSP. Someone else talks about 401ks. A headline says CPP or Social Security won't be enough. And suddenly it feels like you're already behind. So what do most people do? They avoid it altogether. Not because they're irresponsible, but because confusion is exhausting. Avoidance feels safer than the uncertainty. And the longer avoidance goes on, the heavier it feels to start. That's why retirement planning carries so much emotional weight, especially after 50. You're not just planning numbers, you're planning security, dignity, and independence. And that's a lot to carry. And here's the part that most people don't even realize. The biggest mistake people make with retirement planning isn't picking the wrong account. It's misunderstanding what actually gives you security later on in life. In a few minutes, I'm going to share the one realization from my 24-hour deep dive that completely changed how I think about retirement. And it has nothing to do with RRSPs, 401ks, or investment returns. If you've ever felt like you're doing everything right but still not feeling confident, you'll want to hear this part. Retirement tools side by side. This is where most people get overwhelmed, so we're going to slow this down a little bit. Different countries, different names, very similar structures. So let's start with Canada, the core pieces. RRSP is Registered Retirement Savings Plan. An RRSP lets you contribute money before tax, lowering your taxable income now. Later, when you withdraw, that money is taxed as income. This works well if you're earning income today. You expect to be in a lower tax bracket later, or you want immediate tax relief. But here's what most people miss. An RRSP is not an investment by itself. It's a container. So what you hold inside it is ETFs, mutual funds, GICs. That matters just as much. A TFSA, that's a tax-free savings account. This one is widely misunderstood. The TFSA is not just a savings account. You contribute after-tax money, but growth is tax-free. Withdrawals are tax-free. You keep flexibility later in life. In many ways, the TFSA functions similar to a Roth IRA in the US. It's powerful because it gives you control, not just growth. So let's move on to workplace pensions. If you have one, you need to understand it. Defined benefits, defined contributions, employer matching. Employer contributions are not a bonus. They're part of your compensation. Not understanding your pension is one of the most expensive blind spots people have. CPP, that's the Canada Pension Plan. CPP provides a base level of income. It was never designed to fully fund your retirement. It's basically the floor, not a lifestyle. All right, let's move on to the US and their core pieces. 401k, that's an employer-sponsored retirement plan. Many include a match, and if you're not using it, you're leaving money on the table. So like an RRSP, it's a container, not an investment itself. A traditional IRA, tax deferral now, taxed later. Very simple conceptually to an RRSP. Roth IRA is after-tax contributions, it's tax-free growth and withdrawals. Functionally similar to a TFSA, especially valuable later in life. Social Security provides a base income. Like CPP, it's not meant to fully fund retirement, only support it. So again, we have different names, but the same reality. None of these systems were designed to work alone. Now, before I share the biggest lesson I learned in these 24 hours, I want to say this. If you've been quietly worrying that you started too late or that the numbers don't look the way that you thought they should by now, don't click away yet, because what I am about to explain reframes retirement planning in a way that actually reduces pressure, especially after 50. And once you see it, a lot of panic around retirement starts to loosen. Here's my biggest aha moment of my 24 hours of research. After all the accounts, all the terminology, all the comparisons, here's the biggest truth I walked away with. Retirement success is less about picking the perfect account and more about time, consistency, and optionality. Compound growth doesn't reward intelligence, it rewards starting. Waiting for the right time is usually the most expensive delay. People don't fall behind because they choose the wrong account. They fall behind because they delay starting, they stop and start repeatedly, or they rely on one future income source. And that's where most fear actually comes from. Not the math, but the lack of flexibility. What actually deserves your attention. You don't need to master everything. You don't need to watch 100 videos. You need to focus on a few core things. Number one, understand your system. Know which accounts apply to you. Know what's automatic. Know what's optional. Number two, consistency beats optimization. A simple plan that you stick with beats a perfect plan you never execute. Number three, don't rely on one future income source, government programs, plus savings, plus pensions, plus skills equals stability. Retirement confidence doesn't come from having enough. It comes from having options. And this is where most retirement conversations stop, right after the accounts and the math. But there's one more piece that rarely gets talked about, and it's the reason some people feel calm about retirement while others feel consistently on edge, even with similar savings. In the next section, I'm going to explain that missing piece and why it matters more now than it did for previous generations. The shift that most people miss. Most retirement systems assume you stop working completely. Income becomes fixed, lifestyle shrinks. But many people today don't want that. They want flexibility, purpose, control over their time. Savings matter, but skills that create income flexibility matters too. That doesn't mean hustle, that means choice. And choice reduces fear. So here's what I learned in 24 hours. Retirement planning in Canada and the US isn't broken, but it is incomplete when treated as numbers alone. When you understand your accounts, your timing, and your options, fear turns into clarity, and clarity turns into confidence. So let me ask you honestly, are you relying mostly on government programs and pensions? Or are you actively building your own retirement plan? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to learn how people are building income flexibility alongside traditional retirement savings, make sure to subscribe because that's exactly what we're diving into next.